The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of this network, their group, or other organization they may be involved with.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of Tuesday evening news. Tuesday evening
Hey, welcome everyone, and welcome to the Psychedelic Reporters for this Tuesday, the 20th of February, here on NOK Network, the video news podcast focused on psychedelic medicine being reported in mainstream media. Shout out to the guys at Dead Ringer from Kirkland Lake, Ontario, for the awesome intro track. Originally recorded by the Moody Blues, with some customized changes for our show. I am joined by my amazing joint host, Tarra Simpson, along with the one and only Bufo Alvarius, who has chosen all of our stories for us. Hello, Tarra.
Hello, Hobbies. Hello, everyone. Great to be back for another week of great stories. I'd like to take a minute to introduce Bufo. He is our Sonoran desert toad, or Colorado mud toad. Did you know he emits DMT from his skin? And, well, park rangers would like to remind everyone, please don't lick that toad. How was your week, Hobbies?
The week was really good. I enjoyed myself. Really good time. And yourself?
Oh, fantastic. It's been cold here, but we're managing. We had some snow, so, I had to go out and do some shoveling. I have quite a big driveway and laneway and parking area, and I don't own a snowblower. So I had to do a little bit of work this week, but other than that, it's been good. It's been quiet. I quite enjoy that.
Yeah, sorry, the dog made his way in. Usually after dinner on a Tuesday, the asshole wants his belly rub, and that's what we just got there. Him coming in and trying to get his belly rub.
Oh, you gotta love that, eh? Pick the most inopportune time for a belly rub.
yeah, at least shut the door when you get your belly rub.
No doubt. That's funny. So Bufo's chosen some great articles.
Oh man, some great ones for today. Pretty great ones for today. And this first one right here, oh man, this Psy-Post DMT shows promising results in reducing depression symptoms, study finds by Eric Dolan.
A powerful psychedelic compound known as DMT shows promise in reducing symptoms of depression. Conducted with healthy volunteers, a recent study in Scientific Reports reveals significant improvements in depression symptoms following DMT administration, along with an intriguing link between the intensity of psychedelic experience with psychological benefits. What is DMT and why investigate its effects? DMT, or dimethyltryptamine, is a naturally occurring substance found in various plants and animals, and it's known for its potent psychedelic effects. When ingested or inhaled, DMT produces intense visuals and auditory hallucinations, often described as otherworldly or spiritual experiences. Researchers have turned their attention to DMT due to its rapid onset and short duration of effects, making it a unique candidate for therapeutic use. Unlike other classic psychedelics such as LSD or psilocybin, which can induce prolonged psychedelic experiences, DMT's effects are brief yet profound, offering a potentially more manageable and flexible therapeutic option. The motivation behind the study stemmed from a growing body of evidence that suggests that psychedelics can significantly impact mental health, particularly in treating depression, anxiety, and other mood disorders. While DMT's unique properties, properties and the need for innovative mental health treatments, researchers aim to explore its therapeutic potential and understand its effects on psychological well-being. I have been doing research with the psychedelic compound DMT for quite some years now, and we were wondering whether DMT had the same therapeutic possibilities as psilocybin and LSD. So we set out to start a preliminary investigation into this by measuring scores of depression, anxiety, and well-being before and after administration of DMT and placebo to healthy volunteers participating in our study, explained study author Chris Timmerman, of the head of DMT research group at the Center for Psychedelic Research at Imperial College London. Wow.
Well, how was the study conducted? The researchers utilized data from two separate but complementary studies involving a total of 30 healthy volunteers who had previous experience with psychedelics. This prior experience was a crucial inclusion criterion aimed at ensuring participants' psychological safety and familiarity with altered states of consciousness. Participants underwent rigorous screening, including physical tests, psychiatric interviews, and medical examinations to rule out any potential risk factors. The study was constructed around a placebo-controlled trial and prospective sample analysis. In the placebo-controlled part, 13 participants received DMT and a placebo in a fixed order, allowing the researchers to observe changes attributed to DMT by comparing outcomes after placebo and DMT sessions, which were spaced a week apart. The doses of DMT varied among participants, and its effects were measured against baseline and post-placebo states, focusing on mental health outcomes such as depression and anxiety symptoms. In the prospective sample, 25% participants underwent a more complex protocol that included EEG and fMRI readings to capture the neurological effects of DMT. This part of the study used a pseudo-balance order for DMT and placebo administration across 4 dosing sessions on 2 separate days, with 2 weeks gap in between the sessions. This design aimed to control for any potential order effects and to provide a comprehensive view of DMT's impact on psychological well-being.
Key findings: DMT's impact on mental health. The researchers found significant reductions in symptoms of depression following DMT administration in both study parts, highlighting DMT's potential as a rapid-acting agent with therapeutic effects on mood. Interestingly, the study also reveals a significant association between the intensity of DMT-induced oceanic boundlessness, which is characterized by a feeling of oneness with the world and a sense of awe, and improvements in mental health outcomes. This suggests that the qualitative aspects of the study experience may play a crucial role in its therapeutic potential. In similar ways to psilocybin and LSD, DMT was able to lower scores of depression symptoms in healthy volunteers, Timmerman told Psych Post. Furthermore, we found that the score of peak experiences induced by DMT were correlated with the reduction in symptoms of depression and anxiety. This meant that DMT may have therapeutic potential and that the same experimental mechanism, the trip, is at play as with other psychedelics. In addition, a significant reduction in neuroticism was observed in the placebo control group, suggesting that DMT could have long-lasting impacts on personality traits associated with mental health challenges. However, the results for anxiety and other psychological factors were less definitive. While reductions in trait anxieties were noted, they did not reach statistical significance, suggesting a potential but not a conclusively proven analytic effect. Similarly, increases in nature relatedness and gratitude were detected, but did not remain significant after adjusting for multiple comparisons, indicating that further research is needed to understand these effects fully. No significant changes were observed for well-being, optimism, or meaning in life. We didn't find any improvements in well-being in this healthy population after DMT comparison to placebo, Timmerman said. This has to do with the so-called ceiling effect, when participants display already high scores of well-being before they're administered with DMT. So there's little room to observe for change. Interesting.
Wow. Limitations and future directions. Despite these promising results, the study authors caution against overinterpretation, the variety in DMT dosages, the methodological differences between the study's two parts, and the exclusive focus on healthy volunteers with previous psychedelic experience may limit the generalizability of the findings. Nevertheless, the findings provide an important groundwork for future research. Looking ahead, the researchers advocate for further studies to explore the DMT's therapeutic potential in clinical populations, including those with diagnosed mental health conditions. The long-term goal of the research is to understand what extent we can use DMT safely for therapeutic purposes, Timmerman explained. Many outstanding questions remain here, but most important relates on how DMT is delivered. We know that DMT can be administered in a flexible way, as shown in our previous study. Therefore, we need to understand the right in which best to administer the compound. The study, Effects of DMT of Mental Health Outcomes in Healthy Volunteers, was authored by Christopher Tidman, Richard Zeifman, David Enzo, David Nutt, and Robin Hart Harris.
Wow, that's an interesting study.
I like that. I'm not a big guy. I've tried DMT, so it's a night of DMT. But I mean, we're talking like 20 years ago. Not that the compound or root or anything has probably changed, but I don't know if I would have been there for it that day, or ready, or like where I am now. If I'm more susceptible to the high, to where it wouldn't be recreational, but more as a medicinal tool and a spiritual tool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I know Kim's had a DMT experience, and she will be having another one this April when she comes for her visit down here. She has a trip planned, per se, with a facilitator. So that should be really, really interesting to see how that goes.
Nice. So Are you gonna go and do it with her? Have you ever talked?
Actually, the facilitator is actually coming to my home, and we're going to have it done here. And she plans on recording it all for future use on the network, as far as like her experience. So that's going to be really cool. And this time I get to just kind of be a part of it and not facilitating, because I was her facilitator slash sitter, for her first experience. So. And I can't wait to see what comes of this next trip for her, because the first one went really well.
Yourself?
No, I'm not going to partake. Not at this time. It's not really kind of where I need to be right now. So I'm just going to watch and examine and see how everything goes for her.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this next article comes from The Conversation, not one that we've read before, but it's kind of cool and hip. This article is called Using Trip Killers to Cut Short Bad Drug Trips is Potentially Dangerous. This was written on Valentine's Day, and the author is Colin Davison.
As interest in psychedelics has grown, so has interest in ways to end a bad trip. Recent research reveals that people are giving potentially dangerous advice on social media on how to stop a trip that is less than pleasurable. Psychedelics cause changes in a person's perception of reality. One of the earliest descriptions of psychedelic experience in Western literature can be found in Aldous Huxley's 1953 book, The Doors of Perception. Huxley describes mostly beautiful visions while tripping on mescaline. And then there were the Beatles, seeing tangerine trees and marmalade skies, and a girl with kaleidoscope eyes. I remember that song, actually. I grew up listening to the Beatles. The last few years have seen a resurgence of illicit use, not only of established psychedelics such as LSD and magic mushrooms, psilocybin, but also of the novel psychoactive substance that are psychedelics such as AMT, 5-MeO-DALT, and MCPP, and methoxytamine. I think that's how it's pronounced. There is also renewed interest in studying these drugs as treatments for mental health conditions such as post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. Even a single dose of these drugs appears to have long-term therapeutic effects. But not all trips are pleasurable. Research shows that if someone is in a bad mood or depressed, then they are more likely to have a bad trip, as people who take too high of a dose. This sort of experience might include extreme fear, time standing still, and mood swings. Very high doses of LSD can also cause agitation, vomiting, high blood pressure, hyperarrhythmia, and other nasty side effects. But at regular doses, psychedelics are relatively safe. To mitigate against bad trips, people will often take the drug in a relaxing and safe environment. And that might include a friend or trip sitter to look after them for the duration of their trip. This was common practice in the 1960s among people taking psychedelics.
Nice. Look at that. Is that acid?
Yeah, those are. It's interesting because they all have different photos, and different producers will use different blotters with pictures on them. And I can remember being in high school, and there was all different ones, and it was all based on the picture, right? It was probably all the same acid, just different pictures.
I remember blotter paper, dude.
Yeah.
More recently, though, some psychedelic users have been turning to trip killers to end a bad trip. These are drugs that can either block the direct effects of the psychedelic or simply reduce the anxiety assisted with a bad trip. Few clinical studies have examined trip killers, but one has found that Kenderson, a drug used to treat high blood pressure, reverses the psychedelic effects of LSD. A recent article in the Emergency Medical Journal analyzed posts on Reddit about trip killers. The researchers found 128 threads with 709 posts from 2015 to 2023. Trip killers were discussed more often for LSD, 235 posts, magic mushrooms, 143 posts, and MDMA, 21 posts. The most commonly suggested trip killer was Xanax, an anxiolytic, followed by quetiapine, the antipsychotic, trazodone, an antidepressant, and diazepam, an anxiolytic. Alcohol, herbal remedies, opioids, antihistamines, sleep medication, and cannabinoids were barely mentioned.
Interesting.
Receptor
Receptor blocking. LSD and magic mushrooms create their effects by activating certain proteins in the brain. These are called 5-HT2A receptors and are usually activated by the neurotransmitter serotonin, 5-HT. There are 14 known 5-HT receptors, but psychedelics have specific activity at only the 5-HT2A subtype. To kill the trip, then, one must simply give the drug user another drug that blocks rather than activates the 5-HT2A receptor. Many prescription drugs can do this, and they tend to be antipsychotic drugs. Quetiapine from the list above is a popular one, while other antipsychotics, olanzapine, was mentioned in 14 posts in that study. Similarly, the atypical antidepressant trazodone and mirtazapine also block the 5-HT2A receptor. One can think that these trip killers are as working in the same way as that of naloxone, which would be used for heroin or fentanyl overdoses. These drugs activate mu opioid receptors in the brain, while naloxone blocks these receptors. Naloxone is therefore used to treat life-threatening respiratory depression from opioid overdose. Another option for psychedelics would be to decrease the anxiety associated with the trip by taking anxiolytics such as benzodiazepines, alprazolam, Xanax, diazepam, Valium, all being the most popular in the posts analyzed above. These would also help the drug taker to fall asleep. Some of the trip-killing drug doses suggested in the Reddit posts were high. For example, quetiapine was suggested to be used at 25 milligrams to 600 milligrams. That's insane. But clinical guidance for these drugs suggested a single dose of up to 225 milligrams. That's still a high dose. The dose suggested on Reddit for alprazolam were 0.5 milligrams to 4 milligrams, but the clinically suggested maximum dose is usually 2 to 3 milligrams. 4 milligrams could cause low blood pressure, oversedation, respiratory depression. Unfortunately, benzodiazepines are also highly addictive and can lead to overdose. People who turn up on A&E suffering from bad trip or overdose of psychedelics will be reassured in a calm environment. If it doesn't work, they're likely to be given an antipsychotic or low-dose benzodiazepine at the clinically advised dose. Wow, that's interesting, eh?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Great read.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, man. So this next article is an article about psilocybin around the world. Where are magic mushrooms legal? And this was written by Kara Wheatstock. It'd help if I pull it up.
I was really excited when I saw Bufo send this one through. I was like, woohoo, other places I can go on vacation.
Right. Dude, my buddy's on holiday right now in Africa, dude, from Ireland, and
Yeah.
he was able to take his medicated prescriptions onto the plane and 5 hour plane ride to Africa, and then walk through customs. The customs touched his weed, saw it was prescribed, and moved him on.
No way. That's amazing. Not a lot of countries will allow that. Like even for me as a Canadian going to the US, where medical cannabis is legal in some states, if you don't have a doctor in that state prescribe it for you, even as a tourist, you cannot access your cannabis. Whereas other countries are getting on board with this like international, we accept your medical card. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, the Euro states are countries. I think they usually have if it's legal in this country and you're visiting us, you could do it type thing. But don't quote me on it. I'm just a puppet.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I hope more countries get on board with that. Like enough of this barriers to accessing our medication. Like it's cannabis. you know. So psilocybin around the world. Where are magic mushrooms legal? This article was written by Kara Whitestock, February 16th of this year.
You want to start us off?
Yeah. The cannabis legalization movement is international, and the same goes for psychedelics. Much like where marijuana is legal in the US, psychedelics, and more specifically magic mushrooms, are legal in various degrees across the globe. While legalization is rare, many countries have decriminalized small amounts of the drug, including psilocybin. Countries have decriminalized personal possession or fully legalized the compounds, but neither ensues a tourism sector. Oh, okay. In some of these locations, tourists are welcome to have a guided trip experience, but others might require some local know-how. Some countries have fines for possession and harsh trafficking laws. Don't experiment with psychedelics abroad without in-depth knowledge of the area. That said, these are the countries where psilocybin is legal or decriminalized.
Ooh. Countries where psilocybin mushrooms are legal. Oh, number one, Bahamas. Drug policy in the Bahamas is dictated by the Dangerous Drugs Act, which was established in 2000. The documents covers opium, coca leaves, cocaine, morphine, amphetamines, LSD, and its analogs, but no mention of psilocybin or psilocin. This has led to news that personal cultivation and consumption are allowed on the islands. However, the Bahamas signed the 1971 UN Convention on Drugs, which includes psilocybin, perhaps to stay good on the 1971 promise, no sale or export is allowed.
Amazing. So the next one is Brazil. Psilocybin is listed as a Class F2 by the Brazilian Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, alongside LSD, DMT, 2CE, and other psychedelic compounds. F2 controlled goods are considered prohibited psychotropics whose use is only permitted in authorized scientific research.
Ooh, Croatia. Croatia's law on the combat of drug use was established in 2001. It defines psychotropic substances as narcotics. However, in 2012, small quantities of all drugs were decriminalized for personal use in the Balkan country.
Czech Republic. Much like Croatia, the Czech Republic doesn't consider personal drug use an offense. Under the Act of Violations, possession of small amounts is punishable by it's a CZK. I'm assuming that's their currency, of 15,000, equating to almost $600. Holding a greater than small amount at once is punishable by 1 to 2 years in prison.
Oh, wow. Jamaica. Magic mushrooms aren't prohibited in Jamaica, as psilocybin isn't listed in the Dangerous Drugs Act. In the last years, the island has become the leader in the psilocybin business, encouraging investment and allowing trip experiences like the Admin Retreat.
That's the second reason I love Jamaica so much. Nepal. Psilocybin is absent from the list of narcotic substances in the Nepal Narcotic Drugs Control Act. However, language in the bill leaves space for the government to specify other psychotropic compounds such as narcotics. That said, there aren't laws against consuming psilocybin in the South Asian locale.
Ooh. Netherlands. Magic mushrooms are illegal in the Netherlands and sometimes looked down on in Dutch culture. However, magic truffles are legal and often found in tourist hotspot coffee shops. Though they aren't the classic dried mushroom strains, truffles contain psilocybin, psilocin, and biosystin, creating a similar trip.
Interesting. Portugal. The European country of Portugal decriminalized drug use and possession in 2001, and that includes psilocybin. Mushroom culture hasn't become international news, but locals know where to find it.
Uruguay was the first country to legalize cannabis. In 2013, the country decriminalized all drug consumption. However, there isn't tourism or trade in place. Much like Portugal, despite widespread decriminalization, Uruguay hasn't developed an international notoriety around magic mushrooms.
Interesting. Where in the world are magic mushrooms legal? There aren't a lot of countries where psilocybin is fully legal. Decriminalization is more common. Brazil has the most progressive drug laws, but Jamaica seems to be the country to watch when it comes to developing psilocybin tourism. Those traveling in decriminalized locations might need to tap into local culture for a chance to trip abroad. Despite what the law says, be smart with psilocybin, especially when traveling in a new country. Safety first, psychedelics second. I would agree with that.
Right. Well, and that's, you just got to realize you're in the middle of, you're trusting a stranger with your meds, when even here in the States or in Canada, we tell you know your med. You know? Yep. So it's you're entrusting someone with your life, basically. And so keep that in mind wherever you travel. But it sounds like Jamaica is the key, like, traveling spot right now, eh?
Absolutely. I've been there a couple of times, and I love the fact that cannabis was widely available and legal. I never did mushrooms when I was there, but now that it's a big thing there, when I go to Jamaica next, I definitely will be partaking in the mushrooms, because I'd like to see how that goes.
Right. Well, on a better note, it's time for medication time.
That's right. It's time to pay some bills. So stay tuned for some words from our sponsors, and then we'll return with more articles that Bufo has chosen, making mainstream media news. We'll be back.
Back in 4 minutes and 30 plus seconds here on the Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network. Let's find that commercial. I'm a one-handed puppet.
Put it away for 30 minutes a day on IWK. The IWK 710 Daily Sesh is a virtual gathering where consumers meet up for a toke and some laughs at 7 p.m. Eastern nightly. Originally aired on Info with Kim social media pages, the IWK 710 Daily Sesh is now also podcasted on NOK Network. Rotating joint hosts bring you a variety of content during this 30-minute virtual smoke sesh. Take a break from the stresses of life and put it all away for 30 minutes a day on IWK. Podcasted nightly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on NOK Network.
Are you a Northern Ontario resident? Searching for credible information on cannabis as a medicine? No Sir is here to help. Established in 2013, Northern Ontario Cannabis Education and Resources is here for you. No Sir Director Kim Cooper brings you 45 plus years experience utilizing cannabis as a medicine and is spreading the education across the North. Activism, resources, referrals, and more at No Sir. Don't be a jackass. Say no sir to cannabis propaganda with No Sir. Find us at www.nocer.ca.
NOK Network presents Ganja News Update. Join joint host Christine Tarra and Michelle Parada as they bring you their global cannabis news update. Catch the Ganja News Reporters weekly on Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time as they cover cannabis news from around the globe in the 60-minute video news podcast. Stay up to date with Ganja News Update, Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern on NOK Network. Follow and subscribe to NOK Network on our webpage, social media, and streaming sites, including Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble.
Join us for NOK Network monthly specials, 12 months a year. Movie nights. Spotlight on entertainment. And live on location event coverage. Stay up to date about upcoming programming by subscribing to NOK Network on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Rumble. Check out our webpage at www.noktnetwork.com. Advertising space available at NOK. Contact us for a rate sheet at NOKNetwork.com. Send us a message on our social media platforms or email us at info@NOKNetwork.com.
Welcome back to the show and our regular program.
And we're back from our medication session live on Psychedelic Reporters here on NOK Network.
And we have another set of stories coming at you from the realm of psychedelic medicine. So let's get at it. Alrighty. This next article is brought to us from Marijuana Moment. And it says FDA officials join experts to discuss psychedelics research challenges and promises. From Kyle Yeager.
Officials with the Food and Drug Administration recently joined scientists at a public meeting on next steps for conducting research to develop psychedelic medicines. During the two-day event, hosted by the Reagan-Udall Foundation earlier this month, multiple FDA representatives discussed the agency's work to promote clinical trials into the therapeutic potentials of substances such as psilocybin and MDMA. Academics and psychedelic drug development professionals also participated in these sessions. This comes months after the FDA issued historic draft guidance on psychedelic studies, providing scientists with a framework to carry out research that could lead to the development of novel medicines.
Patrizia Cazzoni, director of the FDA Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, delivered opening remarks during the first day, starting that while psychedelic medicines have not been approved for medical use, we certainly recognize that there has been growing interest in the therapeutic potential of psychedelic drugs in recent years. Psychedelics are being evaluated for the use and potential treatment of a number of conditions, including depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and substance use disorder, she said. We also recognize that in the real world, many people are currently using psychedelics outside of clinical trials. Given these realities, this workshop is an important opportunity to expand our knowledge about psychedelic clinical trial design, as well as to explore considerations for current use of psychedelics and potential future use of psychedelic drugs. Cazzoni said, in the event that a psychedelic drug is approved safe and effective, this type of exploratory conversation on potential future will also help prepare our key partners and the patients they serve for what comes next.
Tiffany Farshon, who works in FDA's Division of Psychiatry, gave an overview of the agency's psychedelics clinical trials guidance. There's a lot of excitement about the potential for psychedelics to transform the treatment of psychiatric and substance use disorders, or even just to improve overall well-being, Farshon said, pointing a slide of recent news headlines, including Marijuana Moment's coverage of a California psychedelics bill. At the general tenor of all of these articles tends to be one of the inevitables. But you don't know, as anybody who's ever heard me talk about psychedelics before knows, this is putting the cart before the horse from a treatment perspective.
During the second day event, Francione also spoke on a panel titled Overview of FDA Regulatory Authority, where she explained the complications of addressing the effectiveness of drugs that require interventions outside of their direct administration. In the context of psychedelics, this complicated factor comes to play with the notion that the substance will be coupled with psychotherapy. For example, for us to be fully teased out of the safety and efficacy contributors of psychotherapy in psychedelic trials, we would need to well-done factorial studies. But these are big and expensive. There's an argument, and that if you don't have the therapy, that it's unethical and problematic in some way, she said. We don't actually know. I think that a factorial study would be highly informative and allow us to write a better label, but we just haven't seen that done. So, for the now, what we have is an assumption that the psychotherapy is necessary, but that assumption has been regularly evaluated or hasn't been regularly evaluated.
Xavier Musin, another FDA official, similarly weighs in on the complexities of psychedelic drug approvals in a panel that examined the concept of set and setting for unique therapeutics. I appreciate all of the discussions that's going on here, but I'm going to try and bring it back a little bit to see us as regulators. At the end, and in the context of drug development, what is set and setting, and how important and how is it an important thing? Sorry. He said, to me, at least, this issue of set and setting is very closely intertwined with the same issues that we see with psychotherapeutic component.
Ooh, in contrast to most drugs, we usually don't pay attention in a clinical trial in terms of where, how is the patient taking the drug, he said. But for psychedelics, there has been a focus on how the way this context is experienced is highly influenced by cultural and personal influences. The problem for us regulators is, well, it's highly variable, and there's a lack of rigorous definition what exactly is set and setting, Nunez said. We usually do not make a big deal about it, but it's just something that's variable. Here's a completely different approach where we have these preparatory sessions. We have in treatment sessions, and then we have the post-integrative sessions. So this is an integral part of the psychotherapeutic experience with psychedelics. And how to tease that apart. And if you ask me again, what is our priority? I think those well-done factorial studies are absolutely critical to understanding what those contributions are.
Another panel during the first day event featured international researchers as well as FDA's Bernard Fisher, who continued the conversation on how to most effectively carry out research into the plant-based medicines, focusing on study designs and control conditions. In the background, FDA recently accepted an application to review MDMA-assisted therapy as treatment option for post-traumatic stress disorder, agreeing to carry out the analysis on the expedited basis. The new drug application was submitted by Lykos Therapeutics, formerly MAPS Public Benefit Corporation. The chief scientific officer, Lykos, separately participated in a panel at the Regan Udall Foundation event this month alongside representatives of psychedelics-focused research companies Compass, Pathways, and MindMed.
They served as speakers on the panel, which centered on dosing with entheogenic substances. Correspondents were researchers at the University of Alabama, University of California, San Francisco, and FDA SMART team. So FDA is the only agency that's looking into psychedelics. Isn't the only agency that looking into psychedelics. For example, under the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act that President Joe Biden saw the law late last year, the Department of Defense will require to use $10 million in funding to study the therapeutic potential of psilocybin, MDMA, MA, ibogaine, and 5-MeO-DMT for the treatment of mental health conditions. Wow. Department of Defense gets that? Fuck.
Right?
In another major milestone on the path to expanding access to psychedelic assisted therapy among the nation's military veterans, the Department of Veteran Affairs recently issued a request for applications to conduct in-depth research on the use of psychedelics to treat PTSD and depression.
Amazing. That is so cool.
They're rolling in the barrels, man, and rolling in the carts before the horses, according to that guy said. All right, our next and final article comes to us from Psychedelic Spotlight.
Now that I'm reading through that one, I think Bufo may have already given us this one prior.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
The hand cramps ones?
The what?
The hand cramp ones?
Oh, no.
This one right here, the addressing tetany, aka hand cramp.
I'm in the wrong spot. Never mind. Found it.
Okay. The psychedelic experience causes symptoms, treatment. And this was written by Maria Halianova. Ooh, great picture.
Yeah, that is super cool. I like that. I want a print of that. I want to blow it up and put it on my wall. In this day and age of spiritual tourism, traveling to a psychedelic retreat in Mexico, Jamaica, or Peru has become a trendy new habit for explorers of altered states and for those in deep need of mental health reset. While the media continues to report on groundbreaking studies demonstrating psilocybin's capacity to create neuroplasticity, break maladaptive behaviors and patterns, and treat a range of psychiatric conditions, there's not much talk about some quite destabilizing side effects that may occur during the peak of psychedelic experience. Encountering complications can definitely make one's dive into their subconscious more challenging and quite unpleasant. One of these many adverse reactions is tetany. What is tetany? Tetany, also known as involuntary cramps or muscle contractions, is a very common symptom when one's peripheral nerves are overstimulated due to electrolyte imbalance and low blood calcium levels. That's interesting.
Wow, right there. If you want to go check out this cool picture of tetany and what the causes and symptoms is, go to Psychedelic Spotlight. What does tetany feel like? A person who has experienced tetany will likely describe feeling their hands suddenly contracting and stiffening and uncontrollably, as if force beyond their control is lightening the muscles with an invisible vice. The sensation of your fingers involuntarily curling into an uncomfortable grip, resisting your commands, can't be quite unsettling. The muscles become tense, creating an irritating feeling of stiffness and twitching. The spasms intensify, causing a series of rapid, repetitive contractions that disrupt the natural flow of movement, making your hands feel frozen in an unnatural position. If you've seen Edward Scissorhands, it might as well look like that, but with fingers instead of shiny blades. The experience can be puzzling and at times even painful without any substance hitting your brain receptors. However, being acutely aware that you have lost muscle control during psychedelic experience can make one feel vulnerable and can definitely contribute to the common anxiety and many experience during the come up. This loss of muscle control can easily transform into fear and resistance, particularly against the ego depth experience, which is a key factor in the decision-making process for many individuals seeking to undergo a psychedelic journey. Ooh.
Common symptoms of tetany. So some of the symptoms of tetany can include muscle spasms, numbness around your mouth, paresthesia, a tingling or burning sensation in your extremities. Severe signs of tetany can include laryngosspasm. So basically your vocal cords freeze or jam up whenever you're taking a breath. Bronchospasms, when the muscles that line the airway contract. Painful and generalized muscle cramps, vomiting, seizures, and arrhythmia. Wow. So that can be pretty serious then.
Uh-huh. Wow, I've never heard of any such thing. This is new for me. So how to prevent tetany during a psychedelic trip? Preventing tetany during a psychedelic trip is not difficult, and facilitators or a trip sitter can easily prepare for potential complications in the event that the individual for whom they are holding space shows early symptoms. Although many psychonauts and Reddit users opt to fast before a psychedelic trip to increase the intensity of their experience, it may not be wise to deplete one's storage of glucose right before consuming a moderate or heroic dose of magic mushrooms, such as glucose in the body's main source of energy. In other words, those planning on maintaining an intermittent fasting regimen on the day of a psychedelic experience should avoid doing so without preparation, as our body and brain requires essential nutrients and minerals to function properly. That is why experienced keto dieters and intermittent fasters will often drink plenty of water, including zero sugar electrolyte additives, and complement their routine with a significant amount of magnesium and calcium supplements.
Interesting. To prevent potential tetany symptoms, one can consider a health check before a psychedelic trip. Blood tests can be very helpful in indicating whether you are calcium and magnesium deficient prior to a trip, which can help in addressing these insufficiencies to avoid unpleasant complications. Proper nutrition. Many retreats prepare healthy meals that include a balanced diet of nuts, seed, dairy, and leafy greens that would provide the necessary calcium, magnesium, and vitamin D levels for proper bodily functions. Supplements. Stick to taking your prescribed supplements if you have been diagnosed with any of the aforementioned deficiencies. Hydration. Proper hydration is a key factor in maintaining electrolyte balance. The general agreement amongst the psychedelic community is to avoid consuming caffeine or alcohol prior to a psychedelic trip, as they can prevent one's body from absorbing minerals and vitamins. If coffee is something you simply cannot exclude from your diet, the general rule of thumb: for every cup of coffee, you should drink at least 2 cups of water to balance out your bodily functions. Addressing stress levels. While most retreats will often include yoga and massage therapy sessions before dosing their attendees, this is not a simple value add. Stress can affect hormonal levels, which can directly impact a person's calcium storage. This pre-trip preparation recommendations such as yoga, exercise, and meditation can help in reducing stress and anxiety levels. In the event that you begin experiencing signs of tetany during a trip, a simple bottle of water isn't sufficient to reduce your symptoms. You should consider
replenishing your electrolytes right away. The easiest, though not the healthiest solution will be a bottle or two of Gatorade. However, in the event you have forgotten to bring your electrolytes, you can opt for adding a quarter tablespoon salt and a teaspoon of honey in a cup of water, coconut water, and lemon juice. Staying calm. Anxiety, it will only worsen the symptoms. Considering breathing exercises and changing your setting. Massaging and stretching your extremities. This will help with blood circulation. Asking your trip center to check your heart rate. Most psychedelic retreats have an ENT on standby who can diagnose the need for medical assistance. Often it is not necessary if you're able to replenish your electrolyte levels. We often find that the biggest glitches hold some truth. You are what you eat and possibly drink. Perfectly exemplifies this, highlighting how the nutrients in your symptom before and during a psychedelic trip can impact the quality of your experience. Psychedelic substances like psilocybin, DMT, MDMA, and LSD can drain the nutrient reserves in your body, especially when undergoing a challenging trip and experiencing intense emotions. If your body is depleted from the critical vitamins and minerals, you may increase the probability of experiencing an anxious ego dissolution, or in this case, tetany. To prevent an unpleasant psychedelic experience, please consult Psychedelic Spotlight's Guide to Your Diet before and after your psychedelic trip. Ooh.
Wow. Who knew, eh? I've never experienced that, but I guess it makes some sense, right? If you're dehydrated, things can happen.
Yeah, well, it comes back to your body's a temple, and while you're tripping and you're focusing on the high, focus on all that other stuff, there's a safe way to do it. And I'm glad Bufos allowed us to reiterate and see that although you're going to have fun, you want to continually having fun, so do it safely.
Exactly, and it will be a great time. Again, setting, taking care of your body, making sure you're hydrated, making sure you got the right nutrients, all the things you want to do for yourself on a day-to-day basis, you should do while taking psychedelics.
Right. Well, thank you for joining us here on the Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network, and for tuning into our video podcast on NOK Network's Rumble and YouTube pages, as well as social media sites.
We hope you have enjoyed your update on mainstream media coverage of psychedelic medicine advancements from around the globe.
Many thanks to our sponsors and to my joint host, Tarra Simpson, and Bufo Various for choosing the stories, and to you, our listeners, for joining each week on Psychedelic Tuesday. Let's hear from Dead Ringer again from Kirkland Lake on our way out. Bye. Looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of